Daytona Day, everybody! Yes, Daytona Day is finally, officially dead. Rest in pepperoni. It only took 3 years and 2 racing equivalents of diss tracks from yours truly to get the job done, and oh, I'm sure the declining Daytona 500 ratings had a little something to do with it. But the Daytona Day campaign has been replaced, according to our pal Adam Stern, by a new advertising campaign named Daytona 500 Legends, and it's something that definitely looks a lot more like a legitimate way of advertising the Daytona 500 without resorting to trying to create some embarrassing memes like the one you see on my hat right now. Focus on the Smithfield, everybody. It's Daytona Day. But yeah, you know what? On a personal note, real quick, I definitely am thankful for Daytona Day, because a video like that definitely gained my channel a lot of traction. A lot of people didn't just look at me as a gameplay guy or as a, NASCAR Authentics guy. After I dropped that video, suddenly I became some voice in the community that people kind of trusted. So I have to say that I'm thankful for Daytona Day for being able to give me that little bit of oomph to continue and really grow on YouTube, because I mean that got shared on, I think, fansided.com, which I think is a subsidiary of Fox Sports. It also got shared, of course, on Reddit and started that rivalry that continues to this day to a certain extent. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to make fun of Daytona Day. So let's make fun of it a little bit more today, and also kind of talk some serious, well, we're not going to forget it. We're going to forget about that. This year is somehow holding on to one, but yeah, and kind of also talk a little bit seriously about where NASCAR marketing kind of needs to head, and how some of the TV partners, Fox Sports, need to be able to look at this and say, all right, how can we look at NASCAR racing and kind of look where it is and where it needs to go, and then actually make advertising that doesn't, it was weird, Daytona Day, because it chased a casual fan, but it also made fun of the sport itself to a point where it looked like whoever made the advertisement was kind of hating on NASCAR, And a lot of people call me a NASCAR hater. I hate the stupid stuff. I don't actively try to make fun of some of the things that are kind of like the key stones of the sport. Like, I would never, in seriousness, make a left turn joke. And Daytona Day made a left turn joke, and I think it was serious about it. Like, this is edgy and funny, instead of like thinking, oh, this is kind of a meme, we're not really serious about it. It definitely felt like, especially when they had bad cop drama actor be like, Daytona Day's making another left turn. It was like, okay. And this was another thing, because you'll have to remember that before I made that first Daytona Day video, there was actually a Daytona Day the year before. It was actually the start of the ad campaign. I think Kamikaze Games is a little ahead of his time on that one, because he actually, I think, made an exposed video on that one way back then. So credit to Kamikaze for getting out in front of that one. But it was weird, because everybody seemed to hate the song and make fun of the song, like, everybody's popping, it's Daytona Day. That one, like, everybody made fun of that, but didn't kind of look at the rest of the advertisement and be able to kind of pick and choose what was wrong with it, or why you really hated it. And one of the goals I had with the original Daytona Day video was pointing out everything else that was wrong with it. You don't just hate this because it's the song. You hate this for underlying reasons in that, kind of back of your brain, that seeing these images and associating them with things that don't have anything to do with NASCAR, or that don't have anything, that are out of touch with what NASCAR actually is, and who it's actually trying to appeal to, and who actually wants to watch the Daytona 500 versus a bunch of frat boys, at a frat house playing with RC cars. Like, that was stupid. It was such a, that was the other thing that amazed me. I get it. They won a sports Emmy. Who cares? I'm guessing those spots are bought and paid for one way or the other. Or I think I said this in the second Daytona Day video, was that it's possible that the people voting on the sports Emmys were like, NASCAR, that's not a sport. Let's vote for the thing that makes fun of NASCAR, makes it look silly, makes it look ridiculous. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And a lot of people, talking about how great it is that it won the sports Emmy. It's like, no, I think it won for the reason that, there's all these executives sitting up with their cigars and going, all right, NASCAR stuff, that's kind of stupid. Isn't that for rednecks? Let's make it look really rednecky. And I know some people made the argument that Daytona Day was all about, they're trying to make it like a party and make it a must-see event. Isn't that the on-track product? I mean, I know some people watch the Super Bowl just to watch the halftime show or just to watch the commercials. But aren't we at the point where we've realized that racing cannot be football? It cannot be the NFL. And if you try to change it to make it look like the NFL or act like the NFL or talk like the NFL, it's never going to appeal. It's just not going to work because racing is totally different than the NFL. It's going to have a completely different audience. There's always going to be some crossover. I love the Colts. I love watching the NFL. They broke my heart, and that means my playoff beard is gone. But, I watch because it's exciting. I understand the game, yada, yada, yada. I'm also into racing. And I know that you can't promote racing like you can promote football. Casual fans do not look at an advertisement like Daytona Day and say, haha, I want to watch that. In fact, I think the advertisement that they're using this year, the Legend of the Daytona spot, is way better at accomplishing what you want to do. What you want to do is not say, hey, it's a big party, everybody's going to watch the Daytona 500. What you want to do is sell some excitement. Sell it as a legitimate sport. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you hear talked about in professional wrestling circles. And I know that's a bad comparison because it's going to sound like I'm making the wrong argument to a certain extent. But a lot of professional wrestling advertisements, like they'll put the Brock Lesnar's out there. The guys who look legitimate. They're not putting the guys who have the gimmick that looks like this, and they're wandering around and doing all that kind of frou-frou nonsense. They don't put those guys out in front. Those guys are not the ones that are promoting. What you promote is the excitement, the competition, the wrecks. Let's be honest. A lot of people tune in for NASCAR for the wrecks. That's the kind of stuff you put in that advertisement. You put it together in an exciting way that intrigues the viewer. Daytona Day, it's so weird because it's like, it's parody. It looks like something you'd see on College Humor, or it looks like something you'd see on one of those terrible late night talk shows. Like, again, making fun of the sport, or maybe, even in a lighthearted manner, like Joey Logano's on Saturday Night Live, and there's a skit called Daytona Day where, Joey Logano shows up at a party. Like, that would be the context for something like that. Not a Super Bowl commercial or an NFC Championship commercial where, it's like, what are you doing? And you look at the numbers and they don't lie. The Daytona 500 has been the race in NASCAR that has had the steepest decline. The ratings in terms of the Daytona 500 from 3 years ago to now have been in an absolute nosedive. And it certainly seems like at some point the Daytona 500 was must-see, tune-in TV for the American public, which makes it all the more strange that once they started doing advertisements that seemed to imply that, well, this is a great American family sports event, that suddenly everybody kind of tuned out. It's almost like people don't like being told what to do or what to think. So where can NASCAR marketing go from here? Well, it goes to always the same thing, and I'll keep saying it, and I'll say it again. You can't be chasing the casual fans. The casual fans will show up when the hardcore fans have something to get really excited about and show up and be energized by. That's what you're going to need to do. Now, the Daytona 500, obviously, it's not necessarily hurting as an event. They sold it out last year. I think they sold it out the year before. They'll probably sell it out this year. Now, they've had to right-size the track to do that, but you got to do what you got to do. And if all the passionate stock car fans in the world are excited about the Daytona 500, showing up to the Daytona 500, making a lot of noise in the stands, getting excited about their drivers, That's what's going to bring the casual fans in. That's what happened in the late 80s, early 90s with NASCAR. You had a sport that was so red hot with the fan base. Suddenly you had the advertisers, the money outside, and then the people themselves take a look and say, hey, what about this NASCAR? And then they changed everything and totally changed it from the sport it used to be to the sport it is now. And the folks who liked it hardcore started leaving, and then the people who were casual and still there kind of noticed that things were changing. And the attitude around NASCAR was changing, and they left too. So you almost have to do a hard reset on the sport, which I think NASCAR will eventually do. It's going to take a couple more years to hit that rock bottom. I think it's going to be around 2021, 2022 when some of the track contracts expire and some of the TV deals expire. Now, I'm telling you, and I'm warning you, the rock bottom for NASCAR is going to be hard. It's going to be a pretty big impact when it happens. We know that NASCAR and ISC are merging into one company. I would suspect that there will be some tracks, some major tracks, that end up closing within the next 10 years. I think the sport itself is going to right-size itself, and I think some of those 1.5 milers that everybody hates, I think they're going to be in trouble. You look at something like Chicagoland. There's a reason they're talking IndyCar now, too, trying to do a doubleheader weekend. They are trying to create an event that's worthy of staying on a racing calendar, and at the same time attach themselves to another series that has a fan base that's growing and be able to, you know, combine the racing world together and put on an event that is worth coming to. What about Kentucky? Who knows? What about Atlanta? Who knows? There are some tracks. I mean, Michigan, I'm not too worried about that one. Maybe Fontana. There are a lot of tracks that have one event now, and if you start adding some of the short tracks like Iowa or Memphis that the fans want, unless you go to 40 events, which I don't think the fans want either, by the way. I think the fans actually want a shorter schedule. You start adding more tracks, you're going to have to subtract some tracks. And if those tracks don't have an IndyCar event or an IMSA event or something that keeps them going, they're not going to have any racing that goes on. They're going to end up turning into like Nazareth or Texas World or something like that, where they don't really have anybody to race with them. The TV deal is going to be another major stepping stone for NASCAR. I believe that at some point there's going to be one TV provider similar to what is happening with IndyCar right now, where you've got one provider that will cover the entire season, and that will be where your sport lies. You won't be having billion-dollar contracts from two separate entities anymore. It's going to be essentially having the budget in terms of what you're getting from TV money. Again, that's also going to go to the tracks because the tracks get a portion of the TV money, which obviously that's going to probably go one way or the other. That's going down. I mean, there's almost no way that they're going to make as much money as they did in previous years. They also get $20 million from Monster Energy, but who knows how long Monster Energy is going to want to stick around and whether or not the next title sponsor that comes in is going to be willing to spend that much money going forward. There's a lot of things up in the air. Again, I think it's going to be NASCAR. What they're going to need to do is continue to grow the fan base, continue to appease the current fan base, try to get some of the old fans back, start doing some of the things the way you used to do it, get the cars starting to look a little bit more like they did when the fans really enjoyed it. I mean, if you look, again, to kind of the IndyCar example, that's kind of what they did. They went back and they said, okay, maybe we went a little bit too far in terms of the looks of the cars, so we're going to kind of move it back in the direction that the fans remember and the fans like. And I think that's what NASCAR needs to do. I think you need to look at the Pinty Series in Canada and say, that's a good base to start designing our new cars for whenever they're doing it. I don't remember. It's somewhere around 2021, 2022. Remember what I said about a reset? That's kind of what it's going to be. And there's certainly, NASCAR is not, I don't think it's ever going to completely die. Then again, some people probably said that about Sears. So who knows? But I think it's in a much better position than people like myself would even give it credit for, as long as they put the right leadership in there and are willing to bring the sport back. I know it's kind of interesting that's kind of moved away from the rant of Daytona Day, but I think Daytona Day, like I mentioned in the very beginning, the very first line of that video, I said Daytona Day is a microcosm of everything wrong with modern day NASCAR. And really, that's what it is. Pandering to the casual fans, not focusing on the on-track product, and trying to create something that NASCAR simply is not and will never be. So, it's a step in the right direction to see Daytona Day go away. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments on all of what I have said. Real quick, though, since this is a NASCAR video, that I do want to extend some condolences to the families of Glenn Wood and J.D. Gibbs, obviously two major parts of a couple of very legendary NASCAR teams. So sorry for your loss, and I'm sure their memory and their legacy is going to continue for years to come in NASCAR, because if you think about it, the Wood brothers, obviously that's one of the stalwart teams in NASCAR racing, and Gibbs is clearly the best team of this era. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. We'll see you in the next video. Subscribe for more motorsport and NASCAR content. And one more toot for Daytona Day.